In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Whenever we hear the creed, there's a line in there about believing in things visible and invisible. When we look at the visible, we can look out at creation, animals, plants, you, me, human beings. The invisible, we can refer to as beings such as angels. I would like to point out the fact that the church can be described as visible and invisible, that it has both of these characteristics. It is a both and not an either or, and very appropriate to bring up today, being Pentecost, the birthday of the church. Historically, some opponents of the church thought that the church just grew out of some type of social construct, that people that had believed in Jesus wasn't divinely founded, and it was just a construct of like-minded people. Some other opponents said that the church is just a invisible structure of Christian believers, that there was no visible structure, notably a visible governing structure. And so when we talk about the church's visible structure, in essence, we're talking about the papacy, remembering in Matthew 16 that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. So St. Peter is given the keys to the kingdom. And from Peter down to the current pontiff, we've had someone sit on the chair of Peter in more stable times in church history and even in turbulent times in church history. But the governing structure of the church has been there. We experience that on a local level, having a pastor, and also a bishop shepherding our diocese. And then, of course, too, that's all linked to what the Holy Father does in his position. And so when we look at the church's visible structure, we might not necessarily think of the authoritative structure and the need for that. A lot of times when we think of the visible structure, we might think of just some of the scandals of abuse, financial crimes, politics from the top level down to the local level. And so what we see in the visible structure of the church, that sometimes some of the garbage gets in the way from seeing a lot of the good, the virtuous deeds done by very heroic men and women today. And so to help us get a better sense of the visible structure here below, remembering that the church is both a visible and invisible structure, to keep in mind the communion of saints, to help us remember what parts are invisible. That here on earth, that the baptized, we are what's called the church militant. We're here in the trenches, spiritual combat. So we enter into as members of the church through baptism. It's like we have three individuals getting ready to do today. And so, but there's also another two levels of holy men and women. There's the church suffering, which are all the holy souls in purgatory. That those are the souls that are on the way to heaven. Purgatory is kind of like a deep clean, a refining of fire, is used in biblical imagery. But everyone there is saved and is on the way, and they can't pray themselves out of purgatory. They rely on our prayers. That's why we have masses said for them. That's why our rosaries are done for them. Then we have the church triumphant, which is the angels and saints in heaven. And so that's where we want to end up. And if we kind of get beyond ourselves and take a look at these invisible parts of the church suffering, the church triumphant, we realize we live for more than just ourselves. If we're going to take the time to do multiple acts of penance for the holy souls in purgatory, well, that's a great act of charity. And if we're focused on wanting to be in heaven, well, then that's definitely going to affect our behavior here on earth. We don't have to be right for the sake of being right, that we can do the virtuous thing because we want to continue to grow in holiness. So when we focus here at the level of the church militant on these other two levels, it will make the church militant that much stronger and holier and better. And so keep in mind, whenever we take a look at the church, that we do love the church, the same God that took on human flesh to save us from eternal separation also gave us the church. We don't separate church from Jesus Christ. The same church has a visible structure and an invisible structure. And keep focusing on the end goal of the church triumphant. We'll have a much holier church here on earth. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost.